people
every day,
more often than not, say to me, "You have the hardest job," or "You have one of the hardest jobs." And I'm not saying it's easy every day, but I love it. It's an important interaction that takes place here. It's not always pretty. It could certainly be better, but it's to be a part of it is an honor and a joy for me. So, and no matter how tough the briefing is, I walk out of here having been glad to stand here.
There is nothing more fascinating on a daily basis than what happens inside the Beltway. It's that ring of interstate highway that ropes off Washington, D.C. and is the driving scourge of every single commuter who comes within a breath of the district. Here on Midpoint, we seek out and bring to you those reporters, commentators, columnists, and diggers of truth inside that Beltway. And you can be certain there is nothing more top of that circle today than a certain book and a certain former POW. Let's welcome in from the website WhiteHouseDossier.com and the electronic pages of Politico. Keith Koffler joins us today on Midpoint. Keith, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
By the way, just out of curiosity's sake, do you have to traverse the Beltway, or are you lucky enough to be inside and not have to deal with it every morning?
I'm lucky enough to be just outside the Beltway. And I really only go in if there's a briefing or an event that I need to cover. So I actually can work out here in Virginia where I'm separated from a lot of the stuff that goes on in the Beltway. So I feel like I'm outside the Beltway.
Exactly what makes life good. I lived in D.C. for a while. I know exactly what you're talking about. Stay away from it as much as possible. Hey, we heard Jay Carney here at the top, very emotional when he was leaving the president as the press secretary. Give us some of the inside scoop here, because there's a lot of people telling us why he left, but boy, it's a lot of different opinions. What do you hear?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, he was really breaking me up with that sad song at the end there. He has really, I honestly think the main reason that he left is fatigue. I mean, he has been there a lot longer than the average press secretary. I think it's been at least 3 years, a little over 3 years. And that is a high burnout job. I have to say that whatever one thinks about Jay, that is a really tough job. You got to deal with the press. You got to deal with people at the White House. It's not an easy place to be. So I think that was the chief reason. But I'll also tell you, relations with the press corps and Jay Carney and the press office in general are not very good. And these are people in the press corps who tend to, you know, when Obama came in, I think generally favored him. It's a moderate to liberal group of people, and they've really lost them. So what they're doing now, I don't think Jay was eased out at all. I think it was his choice to go, but they're bringing in Josh Earnest, who is a much easier guy, a much softer guy. He's easy to deal with behind the scenes, and presents a more pleasant face on the TV screen than Jay does a lot. So I think they're trying to tone it down a little bit and try to build relations back with the press corps, who was really in their pocket, but, you know, that they lost.
Okay, now that's interesting about the press corps, because there are some who say, wait a minute, they are in the pocket of the administration. But I've been around some of these press corps before, and it's a pretty antagonistic relationship sometimes. Certainly it can't be any better now here in the 21st century, because you used to have just the alphabet networks, maybe an occasional 3-4 newspapers. Now you have blogs and websites and so many people who are in there right now. Everybody is trying to get their 15 minutes of journalistic fame by asking the question that slaps at the press secretary. So isn't it fair to say that this is a pretty antagonistic press corps at times to begin with?
It can be antagonistic. I would say, though, I've covered Clinton and Bush. I've been at the White House really since 1997. And although there still is antagonism, this is the easiest that the White House has ever had it under Obama. You know, they really have not been tough for a variety of reasons. I think have not been as tough on Obama and on Jay Carney and Gibbs before him, Robert Gibbs before him, than they have other press secretaries, because I think they genuinely like Obama is one of the reasons. There are other reasons as well. But, you know, it still can be very antagonistic. But one thing that Jay does to mitigate that is he generally calls on the New York Times, Washington Post, the major networks. He has to deal with Fox News, but he still calls, even though there are a lot of people, like you mentioned, he calls on the major news outlets, which still tend to be not as hard on the White House as they should be.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now. Before we leave that, though, let me ask, where's Carney going to wind up next?
In a whole big pile of money.
How long? Okay, wait a minute. How long before he shows up on MSNBC as a commentator?
Either that or CNN. MSNBC would seem a little too obvious. I would think maybe CNN, something like that. But you know what he really needs to do now, if he's smart, and I think he's smart, he will go make speeches. I mean, now, like, his brand is hot right now because he's just out of the White House. previous press secretaries gone out, go to Europe, go to Los Angeles, go everywhere, make speeches, make lots of money. That's probably what I think he'll do.
He will make a lot of money indeed. All right, let's get a little feeling what's going on inside the Beltway here today. Barack Obama's folks, the White House people, met with the House members last night, told them a little bit more about what was going on with the Bo Bergdahl case. Now we have a story out today that says the White House is saying, wait a minute, we didn't have the last word on that. It was Chuck Hagel who made the last call on the prisoner swap. What are you hearing around the Beltway today after the White House had a chance to talk with some of the lawmakers last night?
Yeah, this is such an amazing screw up, even coming in the context of the other screw ups that they've had this year. And they're just going to start pointing the finger everywhere and start changing their story and giving other ideas about how this came about. But they really made a tremendous mistake, which is typical of them. They rolled something out without thinking it through, without getting an idea of how they're going to respond or how people will respond, how the Capitol Hill will respond. There is really a haughtiness in this White House. They didn't contact Capitol Hill. They don't let people know what they're doing, and now everybody's angry with them, including Democrats. So they're going to start pointing the finger everywhere. I think is the next iteration of this strategy of trying to roll out this Bergdahl thing again in a better way.
All right, and again, this may sound like a foolish question, but let's try it anyway, okay? They've angered some Democrats here. The midterm elections are coming up right now. They had to know they were going to anger some Democrats on this, or let me play the fool here, I guess. Did they think to themselves, really, hey, don't worry, the Democrats will back us because they're on our side, and maybe they did get caught off guard by some of the comments they've been hearing from their own?
That's a good question. I think that is partially true, that in the end, the Democrats have nowhere else to go. They're with Obama for another 2.5 years. But remember, in some ways, I don't think they care too much about what's going on in Congress or even what's going on in the rest of the world.
Wait a minute, hang on. Who doesn't care? The president?
The White House, because remember, they seem to be operating their own little show over there. They're doing stuff by executive order. They're rolling out immigration stuff, student loan stuff, climate change. They don't need anybody for that stuff. They know that nothing is going to get through Capitol Hill because the Republicans control the House. Obama has built no relationships over there. They have no means of getting stuff through on Capitol Hill for the most part. So they're doing their own thing. So in a sense, I think that builds this insularity because they are just within their own little world, exercising executive actions. And in a strange way, they really don't care too much about what goes on Capitol Hill. I mean, they do care, but not as much as they should or as other administrations have. Do
you think then this is just the calculated emptying the dump truck before we get to the midterms?
No, I think that gives them too much credit. I think that, that would involve planning ahead and rolling out a strategy. I mean, that is not the way this White House has operated at all, thinking that far ahead.
All right, couple minutes we got left here. I mentioned the book. Hillary Clinton's book is out today. We mentioned earlier that already Books A Million in some places have it 40% off for members, which is kind of normal for a lot of these places anyway, has been pointed out. But what's been the internal reaction from a lot of the folks, of course, watching and waiting to see what happens come 2015 and 2016?
Yeah, I think, what this book is, I think people are treating it like it's a book, but it's not a book in a way. It's a tool. It's a tool to get Hillary Clinton out on the campaign trail without making her look like a politician. So basically, her plan, I think, is to sit on a bunch of cozy couches and easy interviews, get some softball questions, talk about a book, present herself as a person, as a human being. I'm going to be a grandma. Here's my relationship with Bill. Talk about her time at State and try to frame that well. So what this book does is it gives her a chance to get out there and basically campaign without having announced as a candidate, get herself back in front of the American public. How well it was written or whether it's a snore or whether there's news in it is almost irrelevant. It's just a way to get Hillary back out there, and I think that is a very clever thing. The problem is she's making some mistakes in doing this, and that, so in that sense it could backfire on her.
30 seconds, biggest mistake she's making.
Well, she said that she and Bill were a couple of poor, indebted travelers leaving the White House. And, today she said they were $12 million in debt. I assume that has to do with the estate that they bought. I mean, she's presenting herself as basically a poor little rich girl, and that's just not going to fly. These people have made over $100 million in the last 6-7 years. That kind of thing is just not going to fly, and it's just a really dumb, bad mistake to complain about your finances when you're that wealthy.
It is fair to say, though, that the book is humanizing her in many ways, and it will be seen as very positive by a lot of people as she gets ready to, if indeed she decides to run, correct?
I think so. I mean, that's the idea. The book humanizes her, gets her out there. She'll appear on The View and places like that, and it will make her look, which has always been a problem with Hillary, make her look a little more human.
You know, we've often said that here on Midpoint we promised ourselves we're never going to do Biebers or Kardashians, and I promised myself that during the entire run of the show we would never bring up the words The View. So I'd like to thank you. You've ruined that when you threw that all into Hades here. Thanks so much. You just ruined that.
For the record, I did it, not you.
Stay away from it next time, all right? Keith Koffler, we thank you so much. We'll do it again, my friend. Be well.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Well, and it is fair to say, too, because the book is humanizing Hillary Clinton, and there are going to be a lot of people who are going to enjoy the book. And again, all this is just the immediate reaction. Let's wait and see what happens as we start talking strategy, getting ready for possibly 2015 and 2016. Midpoint continues.